The Fantastic Four is Marvel's first family, made up of paragons of goodness and morality, except when they're not. These are some of the times these heroes acted pretty unheroic. To put it mildly, the 2015 Fantastic Four film doesn't have a great reputation. It's widely regarded as the worst film adaptation of the property, even including the unreleased Roger Corman-produced movie from 1994. It's so depressing, messy, and mired in behind-the-scenes controversy that even its director, Josh Trank, gave it a mixed review on Letterboxd. That said, some vaguely interesting elements of world-building distinguish it from other Fantastic Four adaptations, particularly that the team works in partnership with the shady US government. After the team gets their powers, this partnership becomes a lot more direct, with Tim Blake Nelson's corrupt government scientist eager to turn them into military assets. Though Reed Richards, Sue Storm, and Ben Grimm reject the offer in their own ways, Sue's brother Johnny, the Human Torch, excitedly trains to become a state-sponsored super assassin.
They're not powers, they're aggressively abnormal physical conditions that we're gonna...
As much of an impulsive hothead as Johnny can often be in the comics, traveling the world doing regime change by fire doesn't feel in character, or particularly fantastic, to us. Reed Richards has always been a difficult character, from early sexist assertions that wives should be kissed and not heard, to his later propensity to become obsessed with his work. Mr. Fantastic has always seemed to be just on the edge of tipping into evil. Lots of writers have explored the idea of Reed maybe being too smart for his own good, particularly those who put him in a group called the Illuminati in the mid-2000s. A pretty different alternate universe version of the group can be seen in 2022's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where Reed was played by John Krasinski. They've essentially taken over their universe and become the judges, jury, and executioners for anyone they think is overstepping.
This Strange is even more arrogant than ours.
No, just more alive.
For now.
In the comics, though, the Illuminati were part of the mainline Marvel U. The secretive group was made up of the smartest, most powerful, and richest people around, including Doctor Strange, Tony Stark, Black Bolt, Professor X, who is later replaced by Beast, Namor, T'Challa, and Reed. As the name might imply, being in the Illuminati makes all these typically heroic, super genius characters given to their worst impulses of isolation and narcissism. They convince themselves they should play gods to secretly protect humanity from various threats. Most notably, they exercise this assumed responsibility during the lead-up to 2015's Secret Wars event by preemptively destroying other worlds that they believe threaten their survival. Reed only earns some points for working with his son Franklin after Secret Wars to rebuild the multiverse he helped fracture. As opposed to her husband, Reed, Sue Storm is arguably one of the more sturdily morally upright Marvel characters. That is, when she's not making eyes at the hunky prince Namor. That said, there was one key time when even she couldn't remain her upstanding self. In Fantastic Four number 280 from 1985, the villain Psycho Man manipulates Sue into becoming consumed by all the negative feelings she'd been repressing most of her life. The result? She turns into the spiky masked Malice, mistress of hate. Free from the restraints of her morals and ethics, Malice uses Sue's powers to wreak havoc on her family and city. The abilities Sue usually uses to protect her family, she started using for destruction. The only thing more unsettling than her wanton rampage as Malice is that when Sue regains control of her consciousness, she uses Psycho Man's powers against him, torturing him into a coma. As harrowing as it is, this entire ordeal is a strikingly complex chapter in Sue's life. So much so that actress Vanessa Kirby and director Matt Shakman drew some inspiration from it for the character's portrayal in The Fantastic Four: First Steps. It ultimately led to her adopting the name Invisible Woman instead of Invisible Girl. And if you want to see the Malice costume still in action, play some Marvel Rivals, which has brought it back into the public consciousness. It's pretty hard to think about the Thing, Ben Grimm, as anything but a big, rocky teddy bear.
This car?
People were surprised to see Ben with a rocky beard in the final trailer for Fantastic Four: First Steps, but there's precedent for the Thing having facial hair, and in one case, it was full-on hair, in a fake beard, when he became a swashbuckling pirate. In 1962's Fantastic Four number 5, the story that also introduces Doctor Doom, the Latverian tyrant sends Ben, Reed, and Johnny back in time to steal the lost treasure of the pirate Blackbeard. But as it turns out, the Marvel Universe never had a real Blackbeard. Instead, it had the Thing in a Blackbeard disguise. Using his gruff demeanor and looks, Ben convinces the crew of a pirate ship that he's the real deal, and he likes it so much, he tries to stay behind in the past to live out the rest of his life as a pirate. He's so drunk off historical power and pirate booty that it takes a literal tornado and a violent shipwreck to knock some sense into him and get him to come back to the present. Johnny Storm has always been quite the ladies' man, but on more than one occasion, he took his loving ways a little too far, like the time he horned in on Dr. Doom's bride-to-be. The FF and Doom have always been frenemies of a sort, so Marvel's first family all get invitations to Doom's wedding in 2021's Fantastic Four number 33. Trouble is, in the previous issue, Johnny slept with Doom's betrothed, his herald Victorious, while they were both feeling particularly emotionally vulnerable. Victorious reveals what happened at the wedding, leading to lots of shocked faces and peals of laughter from Namor. Doom loses it and calls for the Fantastic Four to be executed. They only just barely escape with Victorious's help. To make it all worse, Johnny was also spoken for at the time. He had been dating the winged alien superhero Kayla, who had come to Johnny after discovering that they were soul-bound to be life partners. And yes, Kayla is at the wedding as Johnny's +1 when he sleeps with Victorious. Nobody walked away from that wedding unscathed. Like we said earlier, Reed is often on the cusp of villainy. A key component of writer Jonathan Hickman's run on Fantastic Four is the Interdimensional Council of Reeds, founded by 3 alternate universe Reed Richardses who had Infinity Gauntlets. All the members had to leave their families behind to join the powerful group, but no alternate universe Reed is as fully villainous as the one from the Ultimate Marvel Universe, the universe created in 2000 to update Marvel's characters for new readers. After the rampant destruction caused by Magneto reversing Earth's polarity in the Ultimatum event, Ultimate Reed starts to lose his grasp on his humanity and misuse his genius. Things get even worse after he spends 900 years in a time-displaced laboratory. The experience robs him of all values outside of a thirst for absolute power. What results is an unrepentant killer with a body count in the billions. In addition to killing most members of the US federal government and going on a genocidal rampage against the Asgardians, he personally led the Ultimate Universe's bloody fight for survival during the incursions. Under his new name, the Maker, Ultimate Reed has attempted to remake his lost Ultimate Universe, but there's one major change. He prevents the existence of most major Marvel superheroes on this Earth, keeping himself in total control. Anything but fantastic, right? In perhaps too many cases, the thrust behind the Ultimate Universe was to modernize Marvel characters by simply making their stories darker. Reed's new path sent him into full-on evil, while Ultimate Sue Storm's story is disturbing in a different way.
What do you mean?
It gets pretty wild. In the limited series Ultimate FF, a Spider-Ham variant of Miles Morales convinces Sue that the only way for her to save the universe is to conceive a cosmically powered child with Reed, who had by this point already become a genocidal maniac. She hates Reed and has given all her devotion to Ben Grimm because the Ultimate Fantastic Four were, to put it bluntly, fantastically messy. So Sue decides the only option is to incapacitate Reed, restrain him, and surgically retrieve his reproductive material. Reed convinces her to stop, but only long enough for them to decide she should actually steal Ben's reproductive material instead. And she does, because it's conveniently stored in a SHIELD facility. While the Thing seems mostly overjoyed at his sudden fatherhood, everything about Sue's plan is pretty wildly unethical, which honestly explains why she once became the villain, Kang the Conqueror, in that reality. Ultimate Ben Grimm has some pretty questionable moments too. While it was Magneto who carried out the cataclysm that occurred in Ultimatum, it's revealed that Dr. Doom was the great orchestrator of it all. He manipulated Magneto into waging war with the Ultimates, the ultimate version of the Avengers, under the belief they killed his son, Quicksilver. When Ben and Reed learn that Doom was the puppeteer controlling Magneto through strings of grief, Ben marches into Doom's laboratory in Latveria and crushes his skull, or at least he believes he did. It's later revealed that this Doom was not the real deal, but Mary Storm, Sue and Johnny's mother, who was believed to have died during Ultimatum, but was actually apparently serving as Doom's successor. It's complicated, and the Ultimate Universe is mostly gone by now. So really what you need to know is Ultimate Ben had no problem squishing ahead. Okay, let's get out of the Ultimate Universe and back to the regular Marvel U. While his 3 compatriots get to live pretty much like they did before, just with cool new powers, Ben Grimm has spent a lot of his time since 1961 hoping to just become a regular guy again and drop the rocks that make up his body. While he's temporarily changed back a few times, he's always gone back to being the Thing. Johnny Storm is apparently responsible for ensuring he'll stay that way. In the original Sin event, it's revealed that, years earlier, Reed developed a device that could change Ben back to his old self. The only trouble was that this device was extremely erratic and could only be used once. Unaware of what the device was, Johnny opened it and contaminated it, causing it to malfunction. After Ben leaves, Johnny confesses what he did to Reed. Reed tells Johnny to let him shoulder the blame for the failure. Given how this retcon recontextualizes the decades of cruel mockery and verbal abuse Johnny subjected Ben to, it's not surprising that this moment is burned in Johnny's memory. Around the same time Reed Richards was palling around with the Illuminati, he was also buddying up to Iron Man in support of another bad idea in the comics version of Civil War. The MCU Civil War changes a lot about the root causes of the conflict, but it keeps a few key elements. 1. Captain America and Iron Man are the leaders of the two sides. And 2. A new law forces superpowered heroes to register with governments as military assets.
With the Avengers, shall no longer be a private organization.
Even more so than in the movie, it's apparent from the get-go that Cap, who opposes the registration law, is on the right side of this one. But Reed joins the pro-registration side and makes some pretty immoral moves in the process. Namely, he and Tony work together to make a cybernetic clone of Thor, who essentially operates as a walking weapon. This automaton doesn't think twice about firing a lightning bolt through the torso of Bill Foster, who's Goliath at the time, killing him. Reed also helps build the extra-dimensional black site Prison 42, which the pro-registration side uses to indefinitely detain members of the opposition. It took both Reed and Tony a while to recover as characters after all that. Well before she became Malice, Sue Storm did make a few unheroic decisions, and a very early one was also spurred by tragedy. In Fantastic Four number 32 from 1964, the Skrull warlord Morat kidnapped Sue and Johnny's dad, Franklin Storm, from prison. Franklin had been a very gifted surgeon, but after the death of his wife Mary in a car crash, he had become a gambling addict. A henchman of a loan shark attempted to shake him down for money and was accidentally shot when his gun went off in a fight. That's how Franklin ended up serving a sentence for manslaughter. Franklin redeems himself by sacrificing his life to save others after Morat turns him into, essentially, a human bomb. In response, Sue refuses to marry Reed until he uses his resources to invade the Skrull homeworld and avenge her father's death. Reed obliges, but it doesn't take them long to figure out that Franklin's killer was acting alone. The Skrull government even has him formally executed in front of Sue, but even that doesn't satisfy her thirst for revenge. We'll get to what the Thing did wrong in just a second, but first, we need to dig into Thor's original Marvel Comics origin a bit. Like the MCU version of Thor, Odin cast Comics Thor out of Asgard and stripped him of his hammer for being too irresponsible.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy!
But Thor didn't come to Earth as just Thor. He was placed inside the human body of a doctor named Donald Blake. Blake doesn't get a say in having his life, memory, and personality wiped away so that he can be used as the vessel for Thor to learn about being an upstanding god and responsible son. Blake and Thor did eventually separate, and Thor ended up taking on different human alter egos, or not having any at all at times, but the idea came back in one form in the 2011 Fear Itself event. It involves Karl Borson, the god of fear, and supposed rightful all-father of Asgard, seeking to dominate the realms by infecting various humans with the spirits of his disciples. One such spirit was Angrir, the Breaker of Souls, who uses the Thing as a vessel in the same way Thor used Donald. With newfound godly power, the possessed Thing destroys much of his old neighborhood of Yancey Street and nearly kills multiple people, including Thor himself. It's not his fault, really. He's possessed, but the Thing did that. Not only did Johnny Storm sleep with his worst enemy's fiancée, he also weaponized his charms against his supposed best friend, too. When the FF briefly went off-world for the original Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars event, Ben Grimm chose to temporarily remain on a planet where he could revert to his human form. The main downside to that was that Ben couldn't go back home to his girlfriend at the time, Alicia Masters, so Johnny starts dating her almost immediately, creating a ton of future unnecessary tension between him and someone he claims to love like family. The relationship turns out to be ill-fated, though not in the way you'd expect. The Alicia Johnny is dating is actually a Skrull sleeper agent named Elijah, who took over Alicia's life in an attempt to infiltrate the Fantastic Four. With Ben off-world, romancing Johnny was merely a tactical pivot at first, though those feelings eventually became so real that she willingly got married to him. When her identity was revealed, she died helping the Fantastic Four rescue the original Alicia from a Skrull prison. She came back, of course. Okay, one more alternate universe Reed Richards. In the universe that would become the Marvel Zombies universe, Reed is essentially broken by having to see his children, Franklin and Valeria, be devoured by a version of She-Hulk who has become a zombie. Reed channels his grief into purposeful research, studying the zombies and becoming bizarrely fascinated with their efficiency. By the time Sue is able to see through her own pain long enough to realize Reed is losing himself to a maladaptive fixation, it's too late. Marvel's master scientist has already decided that the undead are far more optimized than regular humans, so he does his family a favor and infects them with the zombie virus against their will. He only spares himself so that he can experience a pure transformation. That means his family mindlessly chews through his flesh. Reed and the zombie FF later trick the ultimate Fantastic Four into allowing them into their universe. They nearly succeed in invading it.
Are we safe? I don't know.
And how about an alternate universe Sue, too? What if stories are tricky to reckon with, continuity-wise? On the one hand, they're the purest representation of what an alternate universe comic book story is. On the other, it's strongly implied that they depict how the canonical versions of these characters would act if things were just a little different. In the case of Sue Storm, this dynamic makes one of her what-if stories particularly damning because it shows how bad her Skrull vendetta could have gone. In 1990's What If the Fantastic Four had lost the trial of Galactus, Reed Richards is executed by the Shi'ar Empire for not killing Galactus himself when he had the chance, thereby allowing the Planet Eater to kill billions. In response, Sue mobilizes the remaining Fantastic Four against the Shi'ar. Using a spacecraft with a powerful Skrull laser further amplified by the cosmic control rod, she strikes the Shi'ar homeworld. This unintentionally triggers a chain reaction that destroys the planet entirely. Honestly, the Skrulls got off easy. Nobody yearns for human connection quite like Ben Grimm. Ben expects everyone to be horrified by him. He constantly feels alienated from the rest of the world. Despite his insecurities, Ben has found love and even been engaged many times, at one point with an elementary school teacher named Debbie Green. They quickly fall for one another after she hears Ben speak at his alma mater. He pops the question a mere 6 weeks after they meet. Debbie says yes, and due to the Fantastic Four's high profile and a fiery message of congratulations in the sky, she becomes a public figure herself overnight. At first, Debbie and Ben are amused by her fans, who cheer her on as the newest member of the universe's most beloved family. But when Ben starts to receive threats from his most dangerous enemies, he panics. On the day of the wedding, Ben disappears to a bar, leaving Debbie alone at the altar with no warning or explanation. Thankfully, Ben does eventually get married to his true love, Alicia Masters, a blind sculptor who is one of the only people who can see Ben as he truly is.